Today's texts, all in one way or another, raise the issue, the concept, the idea of faith. Jesus' disciples, for example, ask for more faith. Can you identify with that some days? Jesus says even the smallest of faith is more than enough. Timothy, in our second reading, is reminded of his faith. It was a faith passed on to him from his grandmother to his mother to him. Faith as a gift that God gives to sustain us through life and to guide our words and deeds with one another. Faith. But perhaps the most interesting of the texts in relationship to faith might be the text from Lamentations. Lamentations is a whole book of lament. Lament. Crying out to God from the depth of pain and suffering and anger and fear. Lament, crying out to God from the edge of hope. Speaking the truth about the way it is with us and clinging to that thin hope that God will do something, that God will bring about healing and restoration. Can such lament be centered in faith? What kind of faith speaks like this to God? What kind of faith stands at the bedside of a dying loved one and demands that God answer why? Stands at the grave of a loved one and throws their grief to the heavens? Who picks up the newspaper, listens to the news, and struggles and says, "How long, O Lord? How long?" What kind of faith? Indeed. The Israelites know how to bring their sorrows to God. They know how to talk to God about the way they feel. They know how like a widow they have become, a princess now become a slave, weeping bitterly in the night, all majesty lost. Treacherous friends, enemies all around, desolate, forsaken, no rest, and without strength. And that's only 6 verses of the opening of this book. They are in exile, driven from their land. And it's hard to sing the Blue Moon of Kentucky when you've been forced marched to Wyoming to live. They hurt. They are angry. They are afraid. They are frustrated. And they throw all that hurt and anger and fear and frustration in God's face. True faith is honest in this way. Tears are as much a part of our life as laughter. Every single one of us here knows about the lamentable things in life. Co-workers who don't do their share of the work, but they claim all the credit, or employers who decide after a good number of years that we are expendable, a neighbor who makes us feel small and insignificant, people who dislike us, who treat us poorly and will not explain to us why, a mother who's too demanding, a father who's in our face, or maybe isn't in the picture at all. Some parents abuse their sons and daughters. Some neglect them and pay them no attention at all. Life is harsh. We have good reasons to be angry, to be afraid, to be frustrated with those we love when they hurt us, at children who can't see the love that they've been given and grow up and curse their parents, at friends whose second nature seems to be betrayal, anger, frustration at one who commits suicide, who should have known how much this hurts and how it's killing us who are left here, at the one who dies too soon, too young. Nobody lives long without scars. Everybody gets hurt. The grief, the anger, the frustration we feel is real. And voicing it is simply honest. Sometimes the church gives this impression that if your life is falling apart, then all you need to do is believe harder. Sing a happy song and pretend that everything is fine or will be. Is that what real faith is about? Lamentation lets us come to God with our pain, with our anger and frustration at the way things are. And in doing it, we feel a sense of hope. When we share our lives with God, and I mean all of our lives, we remember what it's like to hope again. Laments don't take much faith, but it's faith that centers itself on God, that offers up these things to God. So how much does it need? The fact that lament is directed to God and not to the fates or to the universe or to humanity itself reveals to us that it starts in faith. When we bring our real and raw emotions to God, when we're honest with ourselves, when we name the pain and the injustice and the anger and the frustration, just being honest about the way things are with us, when we bring them to God, we are also set free from their power. And we find hope in the promise of God to set us free from them. The one who cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" from a cross, hung there because of the way things are with us. Hung there because God in him is doing something about it, drawing us all to Christ, to this one on the cross, forsaken, drawing us to him, embracing our lament, our cries, our fears, giving voice to all of that in our bondage to suffering and death. And God raised this one up from death to life, new life. Through his death and resurrection, God brings forgiveness of sins and new life, a life that death cannot stop, to you, for you, here, you are forgiven. Now, today, God hears, God's love embraces. This morning, you are invited to the table of the Lord. This table is for hurting people longing to try one more meal, willing to bring all their heartache, here. This eating and drinking is for those who know they hurt and get angry and frustrated, and who are honest with the way it is with them, and who are honest about their need for the grace of God in life's long, hard journey. In the midst of all those things in your life that are lamentable, where is faith to go but to God? God giving himself here this morning in flesh and blood, in bread and wine. God is here for you. He is here with the gift of faith, to be honest about the way things are in your life and to cling to the way God says it will be, a foretaste of which we are given here. Paul says, I know, I'm convinced of the one in whom I put my trust, and he is able to guard until that day that which has been entrusted to me. The prophet Habakkuk says in chapter 2, verse 3, "Therefore still there is a vision for the appointed time. It speaks of the end and does not lie. If it seems to tarry, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay." Lamentation sends us in faith to God with all our pain and frustration and anger, and in God to find hope. Be with us in our anguish still. Free us at last from every ill. Such is the faith by which we live these days. Amen.